would like to provide you with some key concepts on this. So the question is, what is the cause of ADHD? Now, the question is misleading in a way because actually there are different causes of ADHD and they change from individual to individual. So if we consider two children who have received a diagnosis of ADHD, so they have roughly the same behavioral characteristics, they may have different underlying causes. So in general, you may be familiar with the fact that when it comes to mental health conditions and neurodevelopmental conditions like this one, there is a complex interplay between genetics causes, so the genetic clearly is there, but also non-genetic factors, and they interact. So it's not just explained by genes. So genes are important. There is a vulnerability, a familial vulnerability, but there are also other risk factors that are not genetics. When it comes to genes, actually, what we found so far is that, yes, there are clearly some genes that increase the risk of ADHD. And this explains why we often see the fact that ADHD in a way runs in families. Remember, Matt's mother told us that, his father was exactly like him. This suggests that genes may play a role. However, what we found out recently in large, very rigorous studies is that these genes are not specific for ADHD. So they confer a risk for other conditions. So actually, you may remember in the case of Matt, his brother has ASD, autism spectrum disorder. So the same genes that are different, they give a risk for ADHD, but also ASD. So what genes give is a risk, is a vulnerability to develop mental health conditions. Also interesting, we found that these genes that are involved in ADHD are also involved in other common medical conditions, such as asthma, for instance, or obesity. And interestingly, we know that children with ADHD are more likely to present with other medical problems, which is important to know because it adds to the burden of these individuals and their families. I was mentioning that not everything is due to genes. Actually, we know that there are other non-genetic factors that are risk factors. So when you have them, you are more likely to present with ADHD. And these are listed here in this slide. You remember from the description of Matt that mom told us that she smoked 10 cigarettes per day. So we know that possibly smoking during pregnancy is a risk factor for ADHD and other conditions, so it's not good. It is not really clear, however, to which extent it is really due to a direct action of smoking, or if there are other explanations, such as we may think that mothers who smoke during pregnancy are more likely to have themselves ADHD. So actually, they transmit this vulnerability to the children. It's not because they smoke. So it is a kind of confounding factor. But, this is not really clear. And I will say that for the time being, of course, it's good to educate people around the importance of this, of avoiding actually these risk factors, because these, differently from genes, can be changed. So I'm not saying once again that if your mom smoked during pregnancy, you have ADHD. This is just something that increases the risk.